Hello, welcome back to the Live Rally Games podcast. My name is Steven, and I'm here returning from vacation for more Surviving Reelfoot Fowler's Point coverage. And with me here, we have Josh. Josh, how are you doing today?
I could be doing better. I think both of us, that rings true. But yes, I'm doing pretty good now that I'm here.
Yeah, but we both discussed that you and I are both sick at the moment, but thankfully you'll have to do more of the talking to me, and I can just mute myself whenever I have a coughing fit. So
There
we'll
you
make
go.
this work. So, Josh, before I dig in the Reelfoot stuff, I want to kind of step back and talk more about your involvement in the Survivor fandom. How did you get into Survivor?
Oh gosh, how did I get into Survivor? Well, I've been watching Survivor since I was very, very little. I don't remember a time where I really wasn't watching Survivor.
Mhm.
Survivor, Amazing Race, all that kind of stuff. When I really started getting into the community, when I was probably like 13 or 14, I started playing like small orgs and whatnot, getting more involved, finding more people that enjoy the same show with me all over the internet, and then about a year ago. I started a Etsy shop called Outcast Originals. I make
Mhm.
idols and all kinds of different Survivor swag. And that really ingratiated me into the Survivor community. I'm a part of a lot of Discords. I'm part of RHAP, and I played a lot more games. I did some charity stuff. I help out with charity stuff now, so I do a lot of donations and stuff. And I've just really been graced to talk to a lot of people who are Survivor fans.
Yeah, because I think you did some of the props for Survivor British Columbia this last season. So I was
Yeah.
talking to Cole about that. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I was kind of laughing about that connection.
Yeah.
S how did you develop the skills or the knowledge to like make the idols and all these other props?
I have always, I like to say that I've always been very talented with creating,
Hmm.
with art skills and all that. And I really got into it because one day I was like looking at it, I was like, oh, I kind of wish I had that. So I was like, okay, I can make that.
Hmm.
Posted it somewhere, and somebody said, how much would you buy for it? Ding, 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 ding. I'm ready. Start a business.
What are your favorite? What are your? I guess what's your favorite thing to make? And what's the most difficult thing for you to make?
The larger it is, the more detail you have to put into it and the more time. So I
Hmm.
wouldn't say it's necessarily harder, it just takes more time. But a lot
Hmm.
of the tribal immunities, I believe for Christmas, Peter, or not Peter, Pete commissioned me to make some for Amos and Parker. I made them the heroes versus villains tribal immunity and then the David versus Goliath tribal immunity.
Hmm.
So those were tough because they were like 20-hour projects that I would have to do. Um, but it was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I would say those are probably my favorite things to make as well, just because like seeing the final product and being like, wow, that actually is really cool.
Hmm.
I think, yeah.
And so you mentioned that you had, as you kind of got more steeped in the Survivor community, you played some online games. Had you played any other live games prior to Surviving Reelfoot?
This was the first live game that I had played. And I think this is kind of like the only live game that I really had my eye on because
Hmm.
I had been watching since I was, oh gosh, I've been watching since season 2. So that's 6 years now. Oh gosh, I was 14 years old. Oh, yeah. So I've been watching that because Michael
Hmm.
is a really good friend of mine. I met him through the online Survivor
Hmm.
community, probably 6 or 7, maybe even 8 years ago at this point.
Hmm.
Um, and I saw, obviously he would post about that, and I saw that, and I just fell in love with Reelfoot. So
And
bucket list.
so at what point did you start thinking like maybe I want to apply and be on Reelfoot?
I always thought that I wanted to apply
Mhm.
because I believe back then they had you didn't necessarily have to be 18, but then they changed that at some point. So last year was the first year I applied, and I was an alternate for the season,
Mhm.
and I ultimately didn't make it. But I was really close, and I knew that they liked me because they obviously were telling me that I was an alternate. They told
Mhm.
me, they said, you were this close to making it, apply next year. And what really did it in for me was instead of just applying for this season,
Mhm.
um, one of the production members actually reached out to me and said, are you applying? Because we want you, you know? So
So there was a strong signal that they wanted you to be there.
yes. So I was like, okay, I will apply. So
Now, you apply to Reelfoot, you find your cast. What do you do or how do you prepare for the game?
I thought I would do a lot more preparing, honestly. I didn't really do much. I kind of like more so just kind of studied up on like, all right, what's the area like? What's the Tennessee middle of nowhere. Like, am I gonna die out there? Or am I just gonna be all right? And I should have done more food wise. The prep that I did food wise is I just didn't eat basically for like 3 days before coming out, just so I was used to not being hungry, and that worked like a charm. I was fine out there, but I should have prepared more in that aspect.
Like how so?
I should have trained myself to not miss flavor as much. I should have weaned myself off of seasonings and stuff like that a lot sooner or a lot earlier than I did, because that's what really that's the thing that you miss, is those seasonings and everything. Because you can have rice, but even the little bit of salt, it makes it so much better, you know. So
I think this is why in Survivor I hear it's a big deal to actually cook your rice with seawater instead of the well water, so you kind of get that salty residue on it.
I wish we had salt water. Oh my gosh.
I mean, so given that you're you have an Etsy shop, you're good at crafting idols and other things, props from the show, were you thinking about bringing those skills into the game as well?
I definitely thought about it, but I didn't really think I absolutely needed to. I could have made a fake idol, a convincing one, but in the grand scheme of things, if somebody has a real idol, and that's what the real idols look like, in this case, this season we had little arrowheads, or what the idols look like. Then anybody who has an idol is kind of like, well, that doesn't look like mine. So it changes depending on, so if we played like Survivor Cambodia, they got a little note saying that all idols look different. Had I heard of that in the game, definitely would have made some. And I would have passed them out to every one of my allies. We all have rocks in our pockets at least, or something, you know, something. But no, I didn't really care about it that much. I had already told everyone that I did this for a living, so they are all kind of looking at me anyway.
Well, let's talk about, was there any information you wanted to hold back or not tell other players, or you're just like, I'm just going to give them everything and we'll see what happens from there?
I was very reserved in what I said, because I didn't really want to come off as the big time Survivor nerd, because like I know we're all Survivor fans at most part, because we're all applying to be on this fan made version of the show, so you have to at least like Survivor, have heard of it. But I didn't want to be the super fan of the super fans. That's the thing. I think that would have been a terrible idea in my mindset before coming into the game. But as I got out there and I started to meet the people, you know, there's people that are in the same Discord as me, whatever. I decided to reveal a little bit more. You know, I told them initially I'm an artist. And as the conversation get on, I say, oh, I make Survivor stuff. And they're like, oh, cool, you know. The thing that I did want to hold back, though, was my age. I think that's the thing that gets people the most doubt about me, is because they hear you're 20. You know, I thought you were maybe even 30 at this point. I don't know. And it puts in their mind, you know, like, oh, he's just a kid. You know, I hear that all the time. He's just a kid. And even in some of the confessionals, I go back and they say, you know, just a kid. And like, that's not who I am. So I tend to avoid the conversation, but it was brought up at some point and somebody specifically asked me, and I wasn't going to lie.
How come? Were you thinking of like, you know, what's the harm of bumping it up a year or two, or because like I think that you had a surprisingly young tribe, right? You, Julia, who's 25, Drew, who was 26, Carly, who was 26. You actually have a fair amount of players who were all on the younger side. I think the youngest person in the other tribe was Keenan at 25, but for the most part, I think your tribe had a large range of the early mid 20s.
Yeah, and it did cross my mind, especially pregame. You know, I always said, you know, I'll push myself up 4 years, so I don't really seem that young. You know, I see like I'm getting out of college, I'm doing work or whatever. But when I was asked in the moment, I really just made that conscious decision not to lie and have to keep up a lie, because it's worse getting caught in a stupid lie, something as such as your age. You know, being like, oh, earlier you said you were 24. Why'd you say you were born in this year or whatever? Like there's people that would say that, and they would be thinking that, and they're like, that's an odd thing to lie about, you know? So I just wanted to avoid that. I wanted to seem as honest as possible without needing to be honest, if that made sense.
And so was there anything else you were worried about or concerned about going into Reelfoot?
Not necessarily. I knew going in that I would probably look the part of the nerdier person. And I think that has connotation to most people who are Survivor fans, like, oh, that's John Cochran, or that's the next Christian Hubicki. Like, yes, I look the part, but it doesn't necessarily mean that.
Did you have a set strategy or plan you wanted to do when you got into the game, or you're leaving things pretty open?
I am a firm believer that you have to be fluid and you have to be able to adapt to what you're given, because you can have a set strategy. You can say, I'm going to win all the challenges, but you just don't know who you're competing against. You don't know what the challenges are. And there's a lot of question marks that you have to take as they come. So very fluid.
Did you have any expectations what the season would throw at you, or you're just like, who knows? We'll see. We'll see when we get there.
So my initial idea was just based off of the trend of previous Reelfoot seasons. They seem to like taking concepts from the newer seasons of Real Survivor that had been implemented into their own game. I don't remember exactly what made me think that. Something from last season or one of the seasons before, 8 maybe. But it really was like, okay, I should probably expect maybe some sort of what is it? The little cube shot in the dark. I was thinking, okay, maybe expect something like that. But I was really just letting it happen in the moment.
So you arrive at Reelfoot, and this season, one of the opening twists is there are no set tribes. You can do a schoolyard pick. How does this work out for you?
My initial thought was like, okay, I'm going to be one of the last ones, because I took, one look down the line and I was like, okay, I'm the shortest guy here. There's one guy who's maybe pastier than I am. So I'm going to be at the bottom of the barrel. And that's okay, because people are going to assume that I'm weak, and I'm okay with that. I like to think of the good quote that Rudy once gave to Richard. He's fat, but he's good. I like to think I'm something like that. I'm fat, but I'm good. It's okay. People will underestimate me, and I'll prove them wrong later. But yeah, I knew the schoolyard pick wasn't going to go well for me, so I just let that happen and accepted where I was going to get placed and not be worried about it and worry about making connections later.
So, do you remember who picked you in the schoolyard pick and who you then picked?
Well, I was the last one picked on blue, so I didn't get to pick anybody.
Okay.
Because it came down to me and James, and I believe it was Julia. Julia was the one who ended up picking me, because I don't know why she picked me. I guess I just looked better than James, maybe. I don't know. But I mean, at that point, I couldn't really think much of it because there was only 2 picks. And, you're just making a gut reaction, and I don't really think of that.
So James has a question. Let's say Julia had picked James over you, and then you find yourself in James' position of you get to pick what tribe you're on. Do you stick with the blue Unoga tribe, or would you have picked the yellow Kawanu tribe? What would have happened if you were in that situation?
That's a really good question. I think I would have still chose Unoga, just based off of looking at the tribes. I wanted to be on the tribe that you were on, James. Actually, that's the answer. Whatever tribe you were on is the tribe I would have picked, because I really liked just how you were standing, how you were holding yourself already, and having a good attitude, even being one of the last 2 picked with me at the end. We were shaking hands, we were laughing. So I would have probably picked the tribe that you were on, or Barbara. So hopefully Unoga, it would have been the 2 of us. And I think that would have been a really good foundation of a tribe. Now, with in-game knowledge, I would have gone to Kawanu and had a paradise of a tribe and campsite. But yeah.
Well, would James being on your original tribe, let's say he is on that Unoga tribe with you, would that have changed the tribe dynamic, or he would have kind of really been solidified in the alliance with you, Sharif, Barbara, etc.?
I think if James comes with me, Barbara, Sharif, and I think that's his best move on that tribe. If we start the games, I think that's his best option, because I think we really would have given him a home and really treated him with some respect. So I think that would have definitely been the makeup. I think those 4 right there would probably be the best bet. And the problem would then be getting a 5th person, maybe if we can get Megan on our side. Maybe I'd go for Julia. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know that far.
Dina would like to point out that no one was wider than Ryan's feet.
I don't know. Mine were pretty bad. That's true. Ryan did have some white feet out there.
After your tribe, then your Noga tribe is assembled, you learn that the next twist is you need to vote for a player. You don't know what you're voting them for or what's going to happen, but you need to vote for a player in your tribe. Who did you end up voting for? What was going through your head when you heard that?
I voted for Bash because I figured, just based off of first impression alone, I figured he would be a guy that would be able to take it, even if it was something good or bad. Mm-hmm. If it was bad, I knew that it would be maybe not so well received for him. So it wasn't like the biggest deal in the world, but at the same time, I was okay with giving him something good, which he ended up getting immunity out of it, which was nice. I thought that my tribe would choose me because of a few people actually said that when they talked about it in their confessionals, whatever, why they voted for me is because I look like the smart guy and I would make the right decision. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of banking off of that, but I didn't get it, so it's fine.
So Bash ends up you find out that Bash now has to give a penalty vote to a player in your tribe, and this will be the recurring mechanic of the season, and he ends up starting off with Sharif. Now, had you been in Bash's position and you win immunity and have to immediately give a penalty to a player, do you know who you would have given it to?
I would probably still give it to Sharif. I think Sharif is the safest person to give it to on our tribe. And it's something that you can easily explain, like, Sharif, bud, look at your tribe. You're fine.
I mean, so let's talk about your tribe as a whole. Like, when you're looking at the composition, right? So it's you, Barbara, Carly, Drew, Julia, Megan, Sebastian, and Sharif, right? Are you feeling like kind of like this we're gonna win out? Or you're like, we might have some challenges ahead for us.
So, excuse me. And
it cough too, listening to you.
Excuse me. My initial thought was we might lose quite a bit, and that's not a terrible thing in my book.
Yeah.
Because you want to learn where your relationships go. I don't mind losing the first immunity challenge or the second immunity challenge because you get to learn about your tribe and where you stand in your tribe, at least for a tribal council. So I wasn't afraid of losing. I figured there was going to be swaps to come if we really needed to get out of something. So I wasn't too worried about it, but I did think we were going to lose a few. So going on the reward challenges that next day, like, oh my gosh, like we're actually doing stuff.
So that first night, I mean, I think this is before the rain has begun, so it doesn't turn the Noga tribe to the paradise it will be. But to talk me through, like, just your initial impressions of these other players.
Okay, so
I approve the fact you have notes and you're ready for this.
I have
very spoiling.
So Barbara, Southern mom, perfect ally. If you talk to any of the big three, in my interview, the person I labeled as my perfect ally were the moms. I wanted my mom alliance. That's who I wanted. And there was Barbara on my tribe. You're my perfect ally, Barbara. And she really was a great person to talk to. She was very easy to get along with, and she agreed a lot with me in the game.
So why was that a demographic you were looking to ally with?
I knew that I would be one of, if not the youngest person in the cast. So if my age did come out, I could play up. I need my mom. I have. I'd like to think that I'm a sweet Southern boy. Mm-hmm. So I think I could play into the mom kid role or whatever, the mom kid alliance, and it would work out. I don't know. There's not a lot of logic behind it other than I think it just works. And I think it's funny.
So Barbie, you're like, you immediately had a good rapport with and wanted to work with.
Yep. Julia, super sweet, learning about herself a little bit. I think that my initial reaction was that she was out there to, like, obviously she was a fan of the show. She liked the game and everything, but I thought she was out there to kind of prove to herself that she could do something like this.
Barbara confirming that you were her Josh.
Yes. It's funny because I think somebody talked about it, but her son also has beard, long hair, glasses. and is named Josh. So I think it just worked out perfectly. I think that was like match made in heaven. Straight from both of our births. That's what we were destined for. But yeah, Julia, I felt so bad for Julia because in the sequester room, the first thing that I noticed about her was that she still had the tag on her clothing. I couldn't say anything because the tribe handler at that point was like, you can't talk at all. Not even to ask to use water or something like that. I was like, oh my gosh. So I really wanted to tell her that. I felt so bad for her. But I just was, I thought she was great. Bash, workaholic, just keep him busy. He'll be all right. Now, I will say right now, I super underestimated Bash in the conversations that I had post game with him, and was able to talk with him a little bit more in depth about, how he was playing and all that. And I think I super underestimated him, especially from the very beginning. And I really thought that he would be very tribe strength oriented. Sharif, at first I was kind of intimidated by him, but when we got to talk, he's a big old nerd. And he's super easy to get along with. And I know that everybody else got along with him very easy. So I knew that I had to have him in my pocket and really work on him, because he was going to be somebody that everybody else kind of looked to for answers. So if I was in his pocket or he was in my pocket, then everything was good. Carly, quiet to start. And then she really started meshing a little bit more. She started picking up on more conversations. And my initial thought of her before I even got to talk to her was that I thought she was going to be very bubbly and very outspoken, which I think is what her personality is. But she apparently died it down a little bit to try to fit what she thought the tribe was. And I wish she had spoken up a little bit more, because I think she and I would have gotten along a lot more had we started talking a lot. Megan. I have written down right here, Megan was done with our shit already. She was already done with us. She was like, I hate it here. This is terrible. And that was just the face that I read on her. I think she was enjoying her time. I think she was just annoyed that we didn't want to work at the same pace as her. And I totally agree with that. I want to work at a certain pace. I want to get stuff done. But at some point you have to be like, all right, the tribe's not doing it. I'm not doing it. The tribe's not doing it. I'm not doing it. And try to figure out a nice balance for there. And Drew, nothing in common with a lot of us just from that first day of talking. And he lied about stuff that he did have in common with us. Like, he told us that he wasn't a Survivor fan. So like, you're not going to be able to talk about Survivor to a bunch of Survivor fans. I thought that was a very poor decision.
Yeah, so like I remember that first day, like you talk about the work setup. Your tribe just sets the tarp up on the ground and just calls it a day from there, right?
Yes, yes, we did. I mean, I don't really blame us either, because we didn't have the building materials, something that would be actually comfortable to lay down. I mean, we could have thrown leaves or whatnot, but that would have created a problem of the shelter sliding at some point if it does rain, or picking up whatnot. So I was very fine with it. It wasn't raining yet, so we could just sleep on the ground. We'll figure it out, get used to it later. And we never did fix it later, so I guess it found it pretty comfortable.
One of the questions I meant to ask earlier, were there any players in this cast you recognized or knew?
Okay.
Yeah, because I know we'll have to get into it later, but I want to at least start the conversation now.
So I knew Dina before coming out. I had played in a online game that she hosted probably a couple months before we actually went out to Reelfoot. And we got along very well. I mean, she was a very charismatic person. She's very good. And I played a few mini games with her as well. She is amazing. She is great at this game. And I knew that. And I said, that's somebody good to have in your pocket and to have good in your graces. But I was very happy that she ended up on the other tribe, because I think that kind of relationship works out better when you're on separate tribes to begin.
Okay. But everyone else never heard or seen before.
So Julia said she knew who I was, because we are in a Discord together, Survivor Discord, one of the, I think for Inside Survivor or whatnot. but I didn't know who she was. So that didn't really matter in my head at that point because I didn't really know, but she knew who I was apparently. So
By the end of day one, were you having strategic talks with anyone, or are you just kind of still feeling things out?
I was more working social at that point. I wasn't worried about strategy because I knew that we had more time to figure that out later. I can put together a plan in 30 minutes. I don't need a day to do it. I need to work on social connections for a day because you can't do those in 30 minutes.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of these initial reward challenges, because overall these go extremely well in your favor. So there's the opening memory box challenge on day one.
Yep.
How was that for you?
I'm terrible at memory. That's like one of the things that I just cannot do. So I didn't get a single thing, and it didn't really matter to me. I was like, all right, we got bread, we got rice, we got a little hot sauce, a grate. Well, that's great. What else are we gonna do? I wasn't gonna complain about it if we got anything, if we didn't get anything, because that's more of a luck game than really anything else. So.
And then starting day two, you have the SOS challenge. I think from my understanding here, you have a much bigger role in helping your tribe succeed here.
Yes. And, that starts because I told everyone I'm an artist. And so, they go, oh, you're the creative one. Oh, you're going to lead us in this challenge. You're going to do this. Like, all right, cool. All right. And so I gave them my ideas. And not everybody liked my ideas. That's the thing. I told them all the stuff. I'm like, there's color theory. They're probably out there putting leaves on the ground. That's a terrible idea. I know some of you want to put leaves on the ground. It's a terrible idea. We need as much color contrast and as much movement as we can. And some people, I think Carly was the one who was very adamant about not liking some of my ideas. She still liked some of them, but she wanted to improve and implement. And we did use her ideas and we used my ideas and it worked out great. I think it was a great SOS challenge.
Do you feel like that embodies your life as an artist, where like you say this and everyone comes back and says, no, I want something different? You're like,
absolutely. Being somebody who creates custom pieces for people, that is my daily life. It is, I have the creative mind and you have a problem. Let me solve that for you. Mm-hmm. Don't think that you can do it by yourself because I'm the artist. But at the end, the customer always wins. So,
do you wish you had made a giant fish?
Absolutely. I think if it was a giant fish, we would have won hands down even more than we would have won.
So you win that first challenge. And then the next challenge, this is the slip and slide challenge. How was this for you?
I like this one. This was so much fun. This was like the first, dude, this is the real Survivor challenge. Like I had to actually go down a slip and slide, whatever, go get something. I wish we had to swim to it. I think that would have been a little bit more fun, but I get the reasons why we did the paddling. And I felt good because I had a decent lead once we hit the water. Mm-hmm. Once we hit the water, I was able to get in my kayak and go and just get around pretty quickly around storm. And I had more time up top on the ring toss to allow me to get a better feel for it quicker than storm. So I ended up getting a point that felt really great. But I think we were up like 3-1 at that point. So.
And you mentioned that, were you a little surprised at how handily your tribe won that challenge, given that you kind of looked at this tribe as like, uh-oh, we might struggle a bit?
I wasn't as surprised as we got into the challenge because I realized that we did have a very coordinated team and very strong individuals. I think our individuals were better in this sort of setting, this kind of challenge where it took a little bit more skill, more so than just pure strength.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we get into the next challenge, which is the Floor is Lava challenge, I want to talk a bit more about Drew, right? Because I think at this point, Drew is starting to be worried about his place in this tribe and his place in the game. Talk me through your relationship with Drew and what you saw him doing and what made you think like maybe we should be targeting Drew.
So I want to start off by saying I really like Drew.
He's the fan favorite. You should like him.
He is the fan favorite, and for good reason. He would not give people their time to walk off and talk with other people. He had to have his finger in everybody else's pudding. And that was the big issue. I think everybody had a great time with him when we're at camp, when he would contribute to conversations, when he had something to contribute, good energy and everything at camp. But when it came to communication with him, outside of general life stuff, that's where it became a problem, because in challenges, he would get a little bent up about something and like, I know how to do this. I want to do it this way. And he would just kind of do his thing. At camp, we would walk off. Me and Sharif walk off. Sharif and somebody else walk off. He's following 10 paces behind. And so it was hard to start having those strategic conversations and start making plans. But at the same time, it made it easy, because now we have somebody that's starting to, bother people. I walked up to Sharif, I finally got a little bit of time alone with him, and he said, "Oh man, Drew's annoying me so much." And so I was like, okay, yeah, Drew's annoying me too. Then I got to talk to Megan at some point. Drew's annoying me. Perfect. Drew's annoying me too. Just repeat what people are saying back to them. And now we have something that's got a little bit of traction. Barbara starts to get annoyed with him, just because I think we all started talking about how we're getting annoyed, and it started just, becoming part of people's minds and their thinking, and be like, okay, maybe he is annoying me.
Do you recall the Star Wars conversation that you and Sharif were having with Drew there?
I love that. Yes. I do know that Star Wars conversation. It was a very good conversation too. We were talking about all sorts of, legends, and like, I wish, Keanu Reeves would come back and play Darth Raven and all that. And like we were having a great conversation. And like, it wasn't just Star Wars. We talked about a lot of Marvel stuff as well. And, just pop culture, nerdy stuff that we were all excited for, the Stranger Things, the new season that just came out and everything. It was a good time. But I did realize at some point where it was like, okay, it's just me and Sharif having this conversation. So let's try to open that up and try to get some more people. And I don't think Drew was there at that time when I was trying to open it up more.
So the next reward challenge is the Floor is Lava challenge, right? And this is the challenge where they go across the balance beam, memorize a group of colors, come back and recreate that pattern. As you mentioned earlier, Drew takes the lead in this challenge. There's a little conflict as a result of that.
Yeah, and I don't know if we necessarily put anyone in charge. I think Drew, yes, I think at the beginning, Drew said, hey, I'm going to be really good at this. So let's, so I think we tried to let him lead, but his suggestions fell on deaf ears, I think. Because when I watched back that challenge, I saw him kind of talking over them while they were at the memorization table. And then as soon as he was done talking, he didn't care if they listened or not. He just went back and started standing on the boards until everybody else came. And I think he'll agree. I think he sees that was one of his key moments of kind of losing the game, was that he wasn't trying to keep the team together and trying to bring us together. He was just saying what he had to say and then doing it. He wasn't waiting for other people to also do with him.
What was your role in the challenge?
So I was actually on the other side. I had the best part. I don't know why anyone else didn't step up for this, because all I had to do was listen to what they were telling me. So it didn't really matter what I did. Well,
you just mentioned before, memory is not your strong suit. So this is probably the best place to put you.
Yeah, memory was not my strong suit. And I was like, this is the absolute best place to put me. Like, I could have done the boards fine. That's great. I could have been in the front. I could have been in the back. Anywhere in the middle, didn't matter. But I just really was like, I'll be better suit over here, just listening to what you guys have to say. And I just have to put the colors where you guys tell me to put it. That's pretty easy. But I wish for that challenge, I wish people had their colors. I wish they set it the same, because so we had like stained pieces of wood, right? And I would hold a black and somebody would call it a purple. I had a red and somebody was like a dark pink. I'm like, that's a red, like, I don't know if people were colorblind or not or anything, but it was really bothering me that they did not have their colors in order.
So your tribe wins this challenge. And so overall, your tribe pretty much sweeps these opening reward challenges, which is a great feeling. Your tribe wins a lot of supplies and stuff like that. also with these rewards are also coming idle clues. And so, to correct me if I'm wrong, you find an idle clue in that opening reward challenge, right? The memory match challenge?
Yes. So, well, I found it a little bit after. So
Okay.
we won the challenge, and then breakfast the next morning. So this is probably right around where I would find it. Was breakfast the next morning? I found the clue because we were making toast, and everyone was like, does anyone want to cook? And so I stepped up. I started cooking, and Drew had his hand in the bag. I asked Drew. I said, "Hey, can you take some pieces of bread out?" And it was, just take the butt piece off first. And he tried. He was like, "I can't get the butt piece out. I can't get the end piece out." And I was like, "Okay, I'll just handle it. Don't worry about it." And I reached down in there, and I'm like, "Oh, this is kind of funny laid in here. Oh, what is that?" And I found it. I was just like, I quickly looked around. I pulled it out with 2 pieces of bread sandwiched in between it. And then I, held it over. I was like, "Oh, wow, this is some really good bread," and just pocketed it. And then I didn't read it for a few hours, honestly. I waited until confessional just so that I could have like guaranteed alone time. So I didn't even read it till like an hour or 2 later.
What did your clue say?
So it said that it was on the path that we walk every day or something to those lines. And I immediately knew it's the trail. It's the trail that we're on because, we have to walk back and forth all the time. So that immediately cut off half of the area that I was looking for because our camp is right here. Down here is like a hiding spots. And then there's a trail with some trees along the side, some dead trees, whatever. And I was like, okay, well, I've just eliminated half of my searching area. This is great. And then I opened up about the clue to 2 people. I told Barbara and I told Sharif. I told Sharif what the clue was. I don't think I ever actually told Barbara what the clue said. I think I just told her I found one because I wanted the 3 of us to be open-minded and think, okay, there's going to be clues in these rewards coming, probably, until something's found. So, just have your eyes out for that.
And so were you aware about the other clues that were found?
No, because let's see. Drew found the first one, I think, or one of the first ones somewhere around there.
I think Drew found the one from the Floor is Lava challenge.
That's right. So he had that one. Barbara had the SOS challenge. I don't think there was one for one of them, or maybe it just never was found or something. I don't know. Oh no, that's right. Barbara got 2 because she got one from the lawn chair because I watched her take it out of her pocket or out of the pocket because I was keeping my eyes on everything. I was like, I'm not going to go over in there and start rummaging through everything, but I am going to watch everyone else rummage through it. And I saw Barbara she pulled the chair out of the bag and then put it back in, but she put something in her pocket. I was like, I came up to her, I was like, just giving her a wink and a nudge and elbowing her until she realized like I knew. And then I heard later that she got the one when we went on the tugboat. So I was very pleased that we had all the clues. I don't know what happened. we stopped caring.
So how vital were Idle's advantages to your game?
I didn't really
Your
care.
general philosophy in Idle's advantages.
My general philosophy is, keep an eye out for them, but don't rely on them because a good player can play with idols. A better player plays around idols. So I was in that mindset of, just be mindful of who might have an idol and try to work around the potential use of idols. And we'll talk about this more as we get closer to my end game.
So let's move down to the end of day 2 where you have your first immunity challenge. And so this is kind of let's see. This is you have the obstacle course, right? We have to move up and down and around something, solve a little ladder, come back, and then solve a puzzle, right? And so where were you in this challenge?
So my jobs were to build the ladder puzzle and to help with the final puzzle. The whole tribe could help with the final puzzle. But before we started the challenge, I told my tribe, I said, hey, these types of puzzles are easier when there's less people on them. If you have too many cooks in the kitchen, it's going to go badly. So let's nominate
That's the
2 or 3.
tribe, right? That
Right.
they all apparently had their hands in, and boom, that solved it.
Yeah, apparently, so I was wrong. I'll admit it, but I don't think I was wrong really, because if you go back and watch the challenge, I did the ladder puzzle really fast. I once I got the first piece in, they showed the camera to the other tribe, and then they came back, and I was like 2 pieces away from finishing.
Yeah.
I really think I did great on that. We got back, we had a really good lead, and we put the anagram puzzle or the tangram puzzle together, and we had it right. We had it right, but I was kneeling on the last piece. And I was like, hold up, let's look for the puzzle piece before, because there's a piece missing. There's a piece missing. So let's look for the puzzle piece. And then the other tribe mates were like, no, just mix it up and we'll figure out a new solution. So once I found the piece that I was kneeling on, it was the same shape that we were missing.
Mm-hmm.
So we had it. I just couldn't get my tribe to not touch the pieces long enough for me to realize that. So
okay, that's kind of heartbreaking.
Yes, that was very heartbreaking, because I was like, oh shit, I just lost immunity for us. But it wasn't the end of the world. I figured I was pretty safe going into tribal council anyway, so it wasn't like the biggest deal. And it goes back to that thing where it's like, it's not bad to lose initially. Mm-hmm. But at this case, it was, because we were going down 2 tribe members. So thanks, Josh. Yes.
Exactly. So talk me through the scrambling that happens, because you don't have tribal council till the morning of day 3, right? So how much scrambling is there at this point, and how much is the plan already set to blindside Drew?
I think the plan wasn't spoken. It was more of an unspoken plan at that point, where it's like, okay, we have the easy out. At this point, it's make sure Drew doesn't have the idol. And he was looking. He sure was looking. I can't remember if we all went to bed right after that, just because we were tired and we didn't want to worry about it. We did it in the morning. Excuse me.
Yeah, coughing happening.
But I know that in the morning it picked up a lot more, and we were like very much trying to keep an eye on Drew, and like I'm trying to make sure Drew's like okay with the plan and everything. Mm-hmm. And this is what actually like really frustrated me, and like almost made me wanted to like change my mind on that tribal council, was that Bash was like stirring the pot for no reason. So Bash, like I think Sebastian and Sharif, were talking about the clue that Drew had at some point, because Drew told Sharif whatever, and then Bash walks up to Drew. He's like, "I know you have it. I know you have it," and like right in front of everybody, and it's just like, oh my gosh, Bash, why are you like throwing yourself under the bus? And like that again, I was underestimating him, because he was really just stirring the pot to stir the pot and create a little bit of drama, but. Mm-hmm. Oh, I was like, I might change my vote right here and right now, but I didn't want to have to go through.
So Bash is immune.
Well, that's right. That's why I couldn't do it. That's why I didn't want to do it, because
that's why he felt like he could go do that, because he knew he wasn't going anywhere.
Right. That's true. That's it. That's the reason.
So, anything else before we get to tribal council?
No.
Yeah. So in tribal council, it goes straightforward. Julia gets 2 votes. Drew gets the remaining votes, and he marks Barbara out the door. Anything notable about this to you?
Just the whole thing that went down between Drew and Barbara. I was like, what? When did this happen? I don't remember at all you guys like feuding or anything. Like I just knew Barbara was upset with you, but I wasn't like expecting any of that. I knew it was Drew just playing up the game a little bit, but like afterwards, but. I don't know, that just showed up. But as far as anything else, I wasn't really concerned about. I knew that Julia was getting those extra votes. I knew that because I offered to Julia, I said, if you feel uncomfortable, you write my name down. I don't care. Mm-hmm. I'm somebody who is very ally centric. I want people to trust me, and I have no problem putting myself in the firing range. Having people do their safety votes on me, because I want them to feel like they can trust me moving forward. Mm-hmm.
So your tribe is now down to 7. Could you like rank the most important people in your game from most to least important at this point of the Nugget tribe?
So ranking, as far as I knew, Sharif was probably number 1. He was still that character that was everybody liked, nobody had a problem with, and if you were good with him or he was good with you, and then you were fine. Barbara at this point was my second. I just really got along with her. She was a great ally, great number, and great person to have around just for camp morale. Megan, I saw as very valuable. I saw as somebody that could potentially be a shield for me. I wanted to say that Julia was next because I really started getting along with Julia. I felt like I was being, I don't know how to say this without sounding like not like a terrible person. I felt like I was helping her a lot with her adventure side of the Surviving Reelfoot experience, because she was out there and she was having a rough time, chopping wood and really making herself a asset to the tribe. And I think that's in her mind, but in a few other people's mind as well. So I really wanted to help her come into her own and really get her to start feeling like she's really contributing. So I really enjoyed having Julie around. Carly and Bash were the two people that I was starting to lose faith in. And I played this wrong. If I could go back, I would do this differently. I started putting my chips into Bash. I tried developing more of a bond with him here and moving forward, because I realized that I had burnt a little bit of that bridge early on, because he came up to me and he was very honest. This is something I respect Bash for, because he's very honest and he'll tell you how it is, or at least in some kind of weird Bash code that he does. And he was like, I feel like you left me out of a lot of the conversations. And so I felt like, okay, I need to start working more to hopefully make him feel like he's being talked to more. Where in hindsight, I think I should have worked with Carly. I think I should have tried to get in with Carly more, because I didn't talk to Carly a whole lot, which is a big problem in my book.
So your next immunity challenge is the balls in the haystack. We had to go into these haystacks, search for these balls, and do kind of a vertical table maze. And this is kind of a near heart attack for your tribe.
Yes, this is interesting moment. I'm not going to blame production or anything. I'm not going to hate on anybody. It was a decision that was made and it happened. I wasn't going to, cry over spilled milk. We lost. I was preparing for tribal council, and we found out it was a reward. Not a big deal. I'm not too worried about it. We still got a little bit of something out of it just because our tribe handlers felt bad for us personally. So it wasn't a huge deal. But I thought the challenge was so much fun. We were, obviously had the incident not happened, I think my tribe wins, because we were very close to finishing. Carly was, probably another attempt away from finishing by the time they got their third in. I think I did pretty good because, I did my first one and I realized what our problem was. So when I swapped back in, I got it on my first try and I got it within a minute, getting that up there. So I had a lot of fun.
So was there any, was there any scrambling that started as a result of oh, we lost, oh no, we didn't lose? Or did you know where you wanted to push on for voting out next?
I think there was some ideas floating around, but I don't think we actually got that far because we got the news that it was only going to be a reward not long after. So I think it kind of scared us, but I think it more so motivated us to try to do the best we can in the next challenge.
Well, it sounds like from at least your kind of tier list of players, your ideal next vote off would be Carly, right?
Yes. I think in my mind, Carly was the person that I wasn't communicating with, but I guess in my mind, I thought that there was always a chance for me to pick up that relationship later, which is never a good thing to say. You can't do that. You need to start those connections early. So I thought maybe I could use that to my advantage. I had no idea what I wanted to do at that point.
So then you have your actual challenge, right? And this is the idle hands challenge. How was this challenge for you?
I got some tough matchups. I won't lie about that. So I had to go up against Storm first, and I was like, this guy's just gonna push me over. I'm gonna walk up to me. He's just gonna one-handed me, push me on the ground, and I'm gonna lose. So I was like, all right, I have to get creative. let's use the strategy that works. So, I just threw it up as high as I could, dove for his a little bit, and there's a little taunting from him. He's, come on, I do it back to him. But that was like a really like, oh, I did the thing, the survivor thing. I was like, yeah, that was really fun. And
did you win that? Did you win that point against him?
I did win the point against him because he didn't have a chance to throw his up either. Mm-hmm. So I got to his arm. And that was really fulfilling because I think we were down like 3-2 or like 3-1 at that point. So we came back a little bit. Yes.
In rewards, you were his kryptonite.
Yes. Yeah. Anytime we went one-on-one, I ended up actually going against Storm a lot. So that was fun. And then it actually tied up. So for the winning point, I think we were playing to 5 maybe. So it was 4-4 at some point. I had to go up against KC, and I really don't know what happened. They said go. I started walking forward, and then the next thing I knew, I had dropped my thing, and I didn't have a chance to throw it up like I normally would. I have no idea what happened there. Honestly, I lost, and that sucked because that was the game point, And I was like, oh. But at the same time, my tribe trusted me enough to put me in that position, so it was like, okay.
So talk me through the strategy going into the next vote.
Oh gosh, this was a tough one because I still really liked Julie at this point, but there were some people who were feeling like she was our weakest link. Carly and Julia were our weakest links, both camp life and in challenges. And I didn't think that was necessarily the case, but so those two often would just happen to be on the tarp, being in the camp shelter more so than the rest of everybody else. So it looked like they weren't working as hard, which is absolutely not right. And I didn't agree with that, but I wasn't going to stop people from saying it necessarily. And then in challenges, I think what hurt Julia was in one of the most recent challenges, that first immunity we had, when she walked across the balance beams, whatever. She had knocked over some of the pieces and just made it harder for other people to get. She had to it took her some time. And that just left a negative connotation in people. Like, she's already one of the smallest people out there. Mm-hmm. So people are already going to start thinking these things. And I felt bad because she had one bad moment. And on top of, a bunch of great challenge performances that she did really good. She was like the only person to find the balls in that challenge that was canned as immunity and turned to reward. I think she was the only person to find the ball. Mm-hmm. So I felt like it was not earned that she was being called the weakest, but at that point, it was hard to change that narrative because I didn't want to be canned for trying to defend her.
So do you feel like it was a group consensus, especially for Julia, or was it a specific person in general?
I think Barbara and Megan, this is my input and this is what I saw. I thought Barbara and Megan were getting fed up with her a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I thought that that's what they wanted. So I think that's what Sharif and I were like, all right, this might be the easiest thing to push. Mm-hmm. We don't want to stray for anything. Because at that point, my biggest concern was, how do you keep the most people happy? So,
in retrospect, do you wish you had expended the capital to try to protect Julia, the push on Carly?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. I think the best thing I could have done here, and let me look at this next challenge. What was our next immunity challenge?
The next challenge is I have it as an amazing navigation. We have to push the ball to the chicken coop, then push it to the PVC pipe, and do a heavy table maze.
Yes. Okay. So
your tribe wins that one.
Right. Okay. So I think retrospectively, I should have taken Bash out.
Okay. So it was not a Julia versus Carly. It's like you should just taken Bash out there.
No. Yes, absolutely. Because I think Julia and Carly are both two numbers that would be very important for later votes, whereas Bash flipped on us very quickly and ingratiated himself very well into the yellow tribe.
So in this vote, Bash is kind of the decoy vote, right? That's who Julia ends up voting for. How does that come about?
Sharif and I. That's how it comes about. We tell Julia we're doing Bash. He's getting on everybody's nerves. He's playing too chaotic, and nobody knows what he's going to do. That's what we told Carly, and that's what we told Sharif. And at that point, Carly was not wanting to do Bash, so she actually didn't vote for him either, I don't think, at this point.
Well, so Carly voted for Julia, right? So it was almost unanimous on Julia.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, did you let Bash know that he was the... Okay, because what's interesting about this is that Bash cast a vote for his favorite person, Megan.
Right.
And then to my knowledge, I can't remember if it's between you and Sebastian Bash or Sharif and Bash, but there is some follow afterwards about that stray vote.
It was the fallout started before. So this is what I was talking about when he said he didn't feel left in the conversations. He felt like there was a lot of me and Sharif doing the conversations and then telling him what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So we tried to make a conscious effort to fix that, but then again, it wasn't our main priority. So I don't know if it was ever caught on camera. I think they were off with Julia at this point, but right after Tribal Council, once Julia leaves the set, I went up to Bash, and I was like, I put on my best crying look, really sad, really upset. And I went to hug Bash, and I was just like, thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it so much. I wanted him to feel like that he saved me in that moment, or that I thought that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew he had some power at that Tribal Council, and he should have taken it.
What do you mean by power? Trying to make something work, get Carly and Julia the cast votes and Barbara?
Mm-hmm. He could have, at this moment, taken Carly, Julia, and Megan and voted one of me or Barbara. I don't think he would have voted for Sharif. I think his mindset was on me already at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Because I go back and watch all his confessionals. He says he's very well spoken, and that's somebody that I need to look out for. So I think if he really wanted to, he could have taken that four. And
is that something Megan would have been down for?
I don't know. I think she was very I just want to win at that point after two losses. So I don't know how willing she would have done it, but I think with enough time with Bash, I think maybe she would have.
How close of an alliance member was Megan to you? It feels like Megan was an alliance member by de facto of being on Unoga, but it feels like she was very much more of a mercenary in this game, even at this point.
I think Megan, she had her options as well, but I think she knew that her best bet would be going with me, Sharif, Barbara, and I think she had a better relationship with some people, especially those that were getting closer to the bottom of our side of the totem pole. And I think she could have utilized that a little bit better. I thought I got along with her very well, but I knew that she wasn't somebody that was going to be overly talkative, overly oh, I really love talking about this. I just knew that, keep it straight with her, have her general conversations every now and then, and help her out with fire and whatever, and get out of her way when she wants you to get out of your way. So I think we did a good job of making Megan feel safe. But at the end of the day, I think she went with us more so just because she knew we had to keep the tribe strong.
Mm-hmm. So you have your last immunity challenge. Actually, one more thing. Julia marks you out the door.
Yes, Julia marks me, and I wasn't surprised because this goes back to me trying to help her in a out of the game scenario, trying to be somebody that she can kind of fall back on and kind of talk things out and express her struggles, in the actual elements. So I really, I am somebody who very much cares about people, their well-being, and how they're doing emotionally, physically, and all that. So I really wanted to look out after her. But at the same time, I knew it was a game, and I think she knows that. But I think she knows that, she thought that maybe I would protect her. So I wasn't surprised.
Well, and that'll end up almost being a blessing, but we'll get to that later on. You have your last immunity challenge of the day. Again, like we discussed, that's the table mace challenge, and your tribe wins this one.
Yes, and I'd like to say that's due in part a lot with our ability to communicate. I work at a summer camp every year. I've been working at it for the last 6 years. And we do the PVC pipe thing. We do that. So I had a lot of experience in this, and I said, listen, put me on the end. You guys just get it to me. We need to communicate. We need to be talk about it. And I think I did the PVC pipe well enough for us to get a really good head start on the table maze. And the table maze just requires communication and people who are willing to stick through a little pain. And I think we had the perfect mix of people to do that.
So, had your tribe lost this challenge, do you know who you would have voted for?
I think at that point, it would have probably ended up being Carly. And I hate to say that because I would have wanted Bash, but I think Carly would have ended up being the vote. But I think for us as a team, I think Bash would have been a better vote because I think Carly could have worked with us very well, assuming that we're not having a swap at the next thing. Assuming we're going into another immunity challenge where we're down 4 people at this point. We needed people who would work the best together possible. And I think the idea of having to trust Bash more so than his ability.
So, were you anticipating a swap? Or did you think that you were going to stay in the original tribes longer? You're like kind of like as you're closing out Date, you're like, they're going to do something to us.
At that point, I was thinking that maybe they're just going to keep us on the same tribes. And they're just going to run it out until like it's really bad. Like I thought they might give us like a sympathy swap if it gets down to like 4 people on Anoga. But
so talk to me about your swap experience. So you win the challenge, you go back, and at some point you're grabbed by production.
Yep.
Talk me through from there.
That was initially scary because you ask the questions. You say, hey, what am I going for? Is this family stuff? And they're like, just grab your stuff and come with us. And at that point, I was very worried because my parents are getting up there in age. They're in their early to mid 70s. And I know with the world how it is now, that's a very scary thing to think about. So I was just really concerned at first, but I kind of put myself out of that. I said, okay, they would have told me something by now. It probably has to do something with little medallion thing, whatever. We get over the hill. I see Angela, and we walk over and we see a nice little dinner table, some flowers on it. It's like, ooh, I get to have a nice little date, and then we found out we're picking tribes. Ugh.
And so what was going to your head? Because you learned basically that you two are going to work with each other to divvy up the tribes, but you all kind of, I feel like, just did your own thing. You kind of like threw the rules to the wayside, say, let's tit for tat this.
Every show has rules, but if they think it'll make good TV, they'll let it slide. That's the thing. That's what happened. So we were told that we had to pick alternating on who gets to go to what tribe. And I put that in my head. I was like, oh, I'm going to be down 4-3 no matter what the tribe is.
Yep.
I wanted to argue that. I wanted to be like, no, I want to do the tribes how I want to do them. But I wasn't. I didn't want to push my buttons with production. So the thing that I figured I could get away with was going back and forth. So I basically just straight up said, all right, who do you want to keep so that we can make this fair? How do we make this fair for each other? So instead of going back and forth, we kind of just like said, okay, here's somebody that I need to have. We ended up picking Sharif and Storm. I think that was kind of no-brainers for both of us to pick our strong guys, our big guys, and try to make it fair from there on. So then I think the next thing we did was Carly for Dina. I knew Dina, so I was like, that's not a problem. I can pick her up. If I have to be down 4-3, at least I know somebody on there knows who I am and likes me enough that I think she would swap. Then I said, okay, I have to choose. I have to get 3 more of your people. So here's the deal. I will give you Megan. She's our strongest woman, I think. She's one of our strongest players. She's a great team player. But I want 3 of your guys. I want KC, I want James, and I want Keenan. And she sat there and thought about it for a while. I don't think she had to think about it too much, but I think she wanted to think she was having a tough time making a decision. And she did have a good relationship with James. I think she told me that. And I think that might have been what she was kind of hesitant on, is because she was really mama bearing James, but she just couldn't give up Ryan. So that's how, in my perspective, that went down, is because I wanted to make sure that I had people. I was concerned about numbers. I wasn't necessarily concerned about tribe strength a little bit. I wanted to make sure I had some people that I could work well with. But I wanted to make sure that I could get numbers. And as soon as I heard that KC was out, I wanted him. I had Dina, I had KC.
Is that something Angela told you, that KC was on the outs?
I don't think she did, but the willingness to give him up and not say as many nice things as she did about the other people, I think also gave it away. And I think she told you in her interview that she felt like I gave away a lot of how my tribe standings were. I didn't necessarily worry too much about that, because I know that you have to give a little to take a little. So I wasn't afraid to show a little bit of my cards. But I really wanted to play it up and be like, this is for both of us. This is how we keep ourselves safe and make it to a next part of the game.
Now, this is your first time really meeting and interacting with Angela outside of a challenge setting. Were you trying to engender more of a long-term relationship from this event?
I thought it would be something that more so naturally came. I figured, if they're doing a swap now, they might do one later on, if not merge as soon. So I wanted to keep that in my pocket, but I wasn't necessarily like trying to make that connection as strong as possible right then, because I knew that there would be time to do that.
So looking at your tribe, right, it ends up with you, Sharif, and Barbara from the original Noga, and you bring on Dina, James, Casey, and Keenan, and you already have an inkling that there might be a weak link there, and then you kind of give away your problem alliance members and Megan, maybe, and to Angela, Lauren, Ryan, and Storm.
Yep.
And so you've got to be feeling like even though you're in the minority, at least for original tribe members, you got to be feeling really good about this.
I was feeling really good about it. I think the one thing I would have tried to do differently was keep Dina on the other side, maybe. Or keep KC on the other side, because I should have tried to give as much of an advantage as possible to both tribes instead of just my tribe. But of course, retrospectively, I didn't know Casey was down. I didn't know Casey was out, so that would have been hard for me to take Casey in and not take Dina.
So let's say you can go back in the past. What would have been your perfect Unogo 2.0 tribe?
I think just replace Lauren for Dina. If I could get Lauren for Dina, I don't think Angela would have ever agreed to that, because I think she was too close. But at the same time, she also had a good relationship with Dina at that point. So I think I think that would have been an okay trade.
Would you think you have targeted Lauren first, or would you have taken someone else out?
I think I would have targeted Lauren first, because I think I would have known at that point, or you could kind of get information, because Casey immediately told us, what the tribe thing was. Like, he told us everything he could. And so we would have known that the girls were running it still, and we could have taken a shot and taken Lauren out at that point.
One last thing, there was apparently an advantage hidden at this at your summit. Was that something you ever on the lookout for?
I looked in the vase that was right in front of us. I was just doing a quick glance over. I didn't really care, though. I didn't want to have my first impression to somebody that I've never met be that I'm looking for advantages in idols. I think that was something that just wasn't on my mind and something I didn't want to come off as.
So the tribe swap happens, and one of my favorite things is that the tribe swap hasn't even ended, and Casey comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm jumping ship."
Yes, so he literally, as soon as he walks over, he's tugging on my shirt. And he's like, and he literally tells me on the mat, he's like, I'm ready to go and get these guys out. I'm like, ooh, I love this. And I thought he was just being over eager. And I was like, do I really want to trust this guy? Like, I thought it was going to be some kind of like master plan. But after I got to talk to him more and he was really like distancing himself from the other old Kuwano, I knew it was like, all right, this is legit. This guy's definitely going to go for us. And like, we even gave him like little tasks to do and everything. Like he was like down to do it.
Like what?
Like he had to stay with Keenan for a little bit at some point, just make sure he didn't wander off and go look for idols or whatever. And then at tribal council that we went to, you know, he had to get the scapegoats and everything. Yes, Casey was ready to go after you guys. And that was like the biggest blessing ever because now I had options. Not only did I have Dina, who's also like giving me the most hugs already, you know, like just so happy to be around me. I had options at that point. I was like, oh, wow, this is where it really becomes a lot of my decision. And that kind of scary.
So talk to me about James and Keenan. You're meeting them both for the first time as well.
Oh boy. So we got back and it was pretty dark once we got back. So we had to make fire. And
has it been rain? It started raining already, right? By day 3?
It's been raining like nonstop for day 2 and 3 at that point. So we're all like really tired. We want to get some warmth. So Keenan's like, oh yeah, because that was another thing. I was like, okay, Keenan was their fire maker apparently, and Megan was our fire maker. So it was like, okay, this works out. We still have fire makers. Keenan gets back. He just absolutely like obliterates our flint and steel immediately. Like Megan had it so perfect, and he gets in. He like, you know, it's taking chunks off. Like I think he cut his finger at one point. I was like, oh my gosh! But I mean, he got it done. So I wasn't going to question it because he did get us fire, but I was very worried that we would be radioing back to camp at some point.
There is a tradition of Canadians cutting their hands with machete.
That is true. But I mean, I just, you know, great person. It was great. The flint still worked. Exactly. Right. I mean, that's all that matters, right? It's still lit fires. That's all that matters. And James is like my kindred spirit. He was the only other person that's like farther south than I was, you know, big time, you know, nerd and everything. And I just love talking to him. And just like hearing about him in general and like all the stuff that he's done in his life. It was just completely amazing to be around him. And I couldn't say anything better about him, honestly.
And so let's go into the next day. So day 4, you have your opening immunity challenge, which is the fishing for immunity, where you have to race out over the water, collect these fishes, come back and make a phrase. Were you one of the puzzle solvers for this challenge?
No, I was not, but I should have been. I think our problem was we had people who were not confident swimmers, and so they had to fill in the other roles first. So James decided to do the running because we figured, all right, we can always make up time, you know, in other aspects. So if James isn't the fastest, that's not the worst thing. He also should have been on the puzzle. That was a good decision. Then we had Dina and KC be on the raft. I should have taken one of their spots. I should have let them do the swimming because I got out there and I could not get one knot undone. And I think I blew like 8 minutes or a lot of time. It felt like forever when I was out there. But this knot just would not come undone. The entire way in the hole. Yes, our raft. Oh, our raft. I loved our raft.
Now, your raft, to remind me, that was the bundle sticks raft?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a special raft.
A special raft in Survivor history. I don't know what happened. We, out of sheer exhaustion and laziness, we put that together. or left it as it was, I should say.
So, yeah, I mean, James is gonna defend the Moga Moga raft, but like, it's still a very special raft. I could not stop laughing when I saw those two pictures. Like, a good attempt at a raft, and then the bundle of sticks raft. Like, well, I guess it floats, but
the other raft wasn't great either. It was pretty slow in the water, so I don't think
just like just put a single piece of bamboo, say, hey, that's all. It floats.
Yeah, honestly, we should have just taken one piece of bamboo and like cut it in half, so they just had to swim with it. That's all they had to do.
Now, when you're watching the word puzzle, how fast did you figure it out?
Once I saw victory at one of the words, or somebody got like Victor or whatever, just like close to being the word victory, I was like, I know it. And you'll see me in the background. I'm jumping up and down. I'm excited because like, I know it. And they told me that I had to turn around and not be so excited because they didn't want to disqualify me. So I was still jumping up and down because I knew what it was. And I was really fighting what not to say. And I should have just walked away. But I was one of those people that was like trying to stand on the side of our puzzle so that they couldn't look over. So like, I felt like I had to stay there. And I almost disqualified us, which I think would have been a funny timeline. I think that would have been really funny. But, gone down in some Reelfoot history. But, it didn't happen.
Well, it's the tribe ends up pulling it out, right? Casey ends up brute forcing at the very end and gets the correct combination of where like the T is or something like that. But it works out in the end. Your tribe wins immunity.
Tribal is seed. Seed at tribal.
Now I kind of want to talk about a couple of things. So, how sure are you that the Noga idol has been found at this point since day 4?
I thought it was gone. The reason I thought it was gone was because the first 2 days, Megan was walking up and down the trail every day, getting firewood, getting whatever else she needed to help her with the fire. Because we just let her do the fire like all the time. And just nobody questioned it. We just let her do everything. And then after like day 2, she no longer went up and down the trail other than like occasional bathroom break. She literally stayed around the fire pit like 24/7. So I was like, she got it. Like, there's no way. So I stopped looking for it as much. I still looked because I was like, it could still be out there, but I thought she had it for sure. So I wish we communicated more on that, because if she was like, I really don't have it, like check my bags and everything, like then I think we would have looked a little bit harder. But I think we kind of were just like, what's the point?
That's one of my favorite little sub storylines. Just everyone is saying Megan has it. I don't even know. I'll have to talk to Megan next to kind of see when at that point that rumor started getting to her that like you have an idol, right?
And she should have played it off. She should have been like, yeah, I do. I think that would have really worked out in her favor a little bit more. I mean, she still played a great game. So like, don't get me wrong, but I think she would have had even more room to work with if she did that.
Now, you also find the mutiny advantage, which you have a very entertaining confession about.
I love the mutiny advantage. So the story is, it was tied to our water jugs. We brought both our water jugs, and it was tied underneath the handle on the top of it. I saw it immediately as soon as we went to go grab it. So I went up and grabbed it. But I had to untie it, and Dina was right there. And so she saw me doing it, and she stepped in front of me. And yeah, she covered it all. Nobody saw me. I'm looking right at Sharif. I'm talking to him while I'm doing it. I'm having a conversation with Sharif. He doesn't even notice that I'm untying something. I grab it, shove it down my pocket, and then I, go get it later. And I just think that's so funny.
Yeah, I mean, Dina, this is a question for you later. Would you have even used it had you had it? So we can talk about that later this week.
And the confessional that I had is, I was like, I'm fine with my tribe. I'm good. Sayonara. See you later. And then I was told later by production that I could not burn my piece of paper. So I ended up throwing it, but I went back and got it. I was like, why not? I'll just keep it. It doesn't hurt.
Because, this is at the final 13 at this point. Like, in your head, like when do you think the merge is going to be? 12, 11?
Yeah, I thought 12 or 11 was not unreasonable. 5, 6 people going out, that wasn't unreasonable.
And so at this point, strategy-wise, like, where are you feeling with, like, because you know that Casey is defected, right? And so you have a majority with you, Barbara, Sharif, and KC. And so the question is like now you're looking at Josh, James, Keenan, and Dina.
That was another thing. I wish I had kept both Dina and Casey because I think that would have also worked out very well for me. I think at that point, if I were to change anything right then and there, I'd vote out Keenan because now I know that he was so loyal to Yellow that I think he would have jumped back no matter what. I think James would have had to think about it and had to have a little bit of convincing. And I think a couple of intelligent conversations between the two of us, I think we could have worked something out. But at that point, I was just thinking I wanted to have the best experience for myself and make it not so bad for other people if I did well. Because I didn't want to get to the end, whatever it was, final 3, final 4, wherever I got. And then, because I worked with Dina long term and then people be upset that I knew that I had a connection going to the game that I hid, not unfairly, but at the same time, it is kind of unfair knowing somebody.
So going into this next mini challenge, this is the Pete's Palooza challenge, aka everyone is going to die from running. Yeah. How much did you have to run for this challenge?
Not much. I think I went to box number 3, and my mindset was there's got to be something in these boxes. Yeah. There's got to be something around them. It's either going to be in 6, which I knew Sharif was running to, so I was like, okay, good. Or it's got to be somewhere in the middle. So I was like, all right, 3 or 4, I'll take 3. I don't care. Because I said I wasn't a great runner. I've been telling everybody all, week, I have a bad foot, just like, let me take this easy. Let me get a halfway through and let me get to this box. So I chose very well. So.
And so you get the legitimate fake idol.
The legitimate fake idol. Yes, that was quite interesting because it was a real idol until I read the paper and I was like, oh, damn, that sucks.
It would have been a real idol until you read the paper, or it was just like,
oh no, I thought it was an idol because it was a bag and it had like an idol looking thing in it. I was like, oh, cool,
because I've been even more hilarious. Like, this is an idol until like you actually read the idol note. And sorry, now it's void. Have fun.
Somebody like Keith Nail would have had an idol, but
So, unfortunately, this challenge, it comes down to the basketball components where you have to have these very light and airy balls going to the basket, and it's a struggle.
It is a struggle, and it was a very close challenge too. We had a little bit of extra time on Ryan, and I think it was Storm shooting. But I just couldn't knock it down. That's the thing. You have a good shot, the wind blows. You have a bad shot, the wind doesn't blow. And I think that's luck. I think a challenge like that is better suited when you have something like a buoy, like they would use on Real Survivor. So it's more so skill and not so much the wind blew. So I was quite upset about that, but
So you're going to your first trial in this new tribe, right? You're receiving at least 1 vote. Are you concerned for a tie? Like, did you already have a plan in motion of where you're going? Talk me through the strategy afterwards.
I felt fine, honestly. I knew they weren't going to vote for me. I knew Dina wasn't going to vote for me. I felt confident at that point Casey wasn't going to vote for me. I knew Sharif and Barbara weren't going to vote for me. So I was feeling pretty good. At most, I would have 3 votes against me if Keenan and James both decided to vote for me. But I knew that I could take it into my own hands and do what I wanted. So we decided to side with KC and take out Dina because I talked to Sharif and we said, KC's saying that they are having a strong, female alliance over there. So we want to crack down on that while we can. And I talked to James about this too. James and I had the conversation about, do we want to vote Casey or do we want to vote Dina? And initially he was okay with doing Dina. And then at some point he said, I'd rather do KC. And I just said, it's all good. Let's do KC. And we ended up still doing Dina. And I had to tell them, like, the real reason. Like I knew her, there was just more about it. I told those two, Keenan and James, I said, I had to do this for myself, and I knew that I could tell you guys later without you guys getting upset. So that was my excuse.
So it's interesting because Keenan and James are both blindsided as well, right?
Yes.
For many reasons. James votes for Keenan votes for Casey. You're probably just like having the time of your life watching all this chaos unfold.
We made the impossible possible. We made a double tribe down in numbers somehow work out for us. And we could only hope that the same was said. And maybe I should have thrown a challenge and done something else instead of letting the other one, but I don't know.
You also taught Dina the word ominous.
Ominous, yes. Yes. So this was another funny thing is, so I was the cook at Old Anoka, at original Anoka. So I was the one making rice, making toast, whatever we had. And so, we come back and we're, going to make rice again because we wanted dinner or whatever after our swap. And Dina comes in, she's like, oh, I'm a chef, or like, I'm going to culinary school or something like that. And she's like, okay, Dina, you can do it. And then she had like this look of like, wait, I have to do it by myself. I'm like, yeah, you just said you're a chef, so I'm not going to help you. You know what you're doing. I think that was one of my favorite, just like laugh out loud moments real quick, just out of the game. I just thought that was so funny.
When the other tribe had got the tribal council and they voted out Carly, were you surprised by that, or was like, did you have it's hard to say, it's hard to know that who the other tribe's going to vote, but was Carly what you were expecting to see happen there?
I was not. I was expecting them to pick up Carly and take out one of Bash or Megan, because if I'm in their shoes, I want to take out the people that seem the strongest, and I want to keep in people that might be easier to beat. And I think in my mind, I would have had an easier time going up against Carly than I would have Megan. But that's all retrospective. I don't know how great Carly would have been in individual challenges. I also think they made a mistake because they didn't put Carly on the puzzle. Yeah. That was a bad decision for
them. So you're now down to the final 12, right? It's the end of day 4. And you're told there's another challenge.
Yes.
And this is where kind of chaos happens. So walk me through what happens here.
So we all get up there, we're thinking merge.
Actually, hold on. Before Parker's one more question. Had you gone to another tribal council after Dina goes home, who would you vote out?
Keenan. Okay. I would have, at that point, Casey had proven to himself that he was with us. James was just too great of a person for me to want to ever vote for at that point. So at that point, process of elimination, I would have voted for Keenan.
Okay. So back to the chaos. You go to this next challenge.
Go to the next challenge. Walk up, we get on the mat, drop your buffs. We're all like, oh, finally we get to merge. I get to get out of hell and get out of here. And he's like, all right, everybody grab a blind bag. I'm like, oh. Because I think everybody had to drop their buff except for Sharif.
Yeah, because were you surprised that Dina gave Sharif the necklace over you?
Oh yes. I was very surprised. I like literally when Dina got up to go give the little thing, I said, just bring it here. Yeah, I know you want to. And she said, no, I don't. I want you to lose, but I don't want you to lose that bad. I think something like that. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And then I felt bad for Sharif because I realized Sharif got it. I was like, oh, it sucks. But I don't think it really affected anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, it did.
It did, yes.
Because fast forward the future, Casey gives Sharif his immunity necklace, and therefore Sharif can't go home in that final 10 tribal council. That could have been you. So, but that's a whole causality thing. But yes, back to the swap.
I pulled the Kwanu buff. I was like, oh, yellow, so good. I'm so happy, and like I'm thinking about, I get to go to a new camp, whatever. And I look around, I'm like, it's me and Bash and all of Old Yellow. Mm-hmm. That sucks. And I was like, hey, I have a a mutiny thing. So why not use that? But then before that, as soon as we got on the mats, Angela comes right up to Keenan and says, "Take this." And like, I just felt so bad for James at that point because James was also as close to Angela, I think, at that point as well, maybe even closer than Keenan was. And she didn't walk up and give it to James. She walked up and gave it to Keenan. And I was like, that really shows you something, James. You know, I wanted to tell stuff like that, but we never got the opportunity. And then we swap. And I think that was a poor decision for Keenan to swap. I think retrospectively, if we lost, it wasn't a bad choice for him. But I think having the numbers advantage already on a swap tribe would have been even better because we would have been able to have a better shot at challenges more theoretically. So I think if I could do anything different here at this moment is try to prevent Keenan from swapping back to or
say, hey, stick with us. We're gonna have a 7-5 advantage. That's massive in this game. All right, we can really tailor we can really tailor ourselves.
Guaranteed merge. That's all I had to say. So I wish I had done that. It still ended up working out fine for me, but I think I would have done that to try to guarantee that.
Yeah, and so yeah, no, Casey's chiming in saying, "Hey, I tried to tell him we were going to win everything, but alas."
What we really should have done is we should have got Keenan to give it to James, and then James switches over, and we have an 8-4. that would have been the ideal.
Oh my gosh! Well, yeah, because that changes everything. Because you have just Angela, Lauren, Ryan, Sebastian. They lose twice. I mean, Angela and Lauren stand on top. Maybe I don't know.
Think so because no, that's the thing is because Ryan has an idol at that point.
True. Yeah.
And then the other thing is also on the mat, we see Ryan walk up and give Storm something. Very open, very like, hey, I want you to see this. And I'm like, that's not real. No, I was like, Storm, like, can I see it? Because I had the fake on. I was like, okay, this is probably something it's going to look like. So I was like, I want to see it. And he's like, later. And I love that moment.
Yeah, so you immediately mutiny as soon as you see your new tribe. Keenan mutinies. There's a fake idol pass. You're kind of looking at Noga 2.0, and this looks like pretty familiar to you.
It is everybody plus Storm, and then minus Bash. We replaced Bash with Storm, which is a decent trade-off challenge-wise, but Storm was like hard to get anything out of. He wanted to get information. He did not want to give any information.
Talk to me about your relationship with Storm.
I feel like I had good chats with him, but I don't think I did enough actual like trying to work on him. I think I was just feeling I was sitting pretty at Inoga and I felt good. And so I don't think I tried as hard as I should have with this connection that I should have made with Storm.
So you go straight into your next immunity challenge. This is the raise the roof challenge with the hold the sandbags above your head. And for better or worse, Angela submits your tribe's victory.
Yes, I was struggling in that challenge. One of the reasons, so the bag I was holding had like a little tear in it or whatever. And so when I was holding it up, the sand was falling into my eye. So I was like, I couldn't see anymore.
But it is getting lighter.
It is getting lighter, but I could not see. And I was really struggling. That's not my kind of challenge. I would have really liked a little bit of a numbers advantage because I was trying to hold 2 bags so that Sharif only had to hold 1 bag for as long as he had to, so that I could relieve it to him because I knew I could at least go, to the second round. But after that, I knew I was going to have to drop. So very thankful that Angela dropped that in that transition.
So coming back to your camp, I guess, like what's going through your head strategy-wise, right? Because you kind of have the original Noga. It's you, Barbara, Sharif, and Megan is back. Casey is practically honorary Noga at this point, and you have Storm.
My thing is like strategy-wise, I thought I was all set. I thought I was so good because I saw the little fake idol thing go down. The handover from Ryan to Storm. And I was like, there's no way that's real. That's so fake. But the hard time was convincing the rest of my allies that as well. So I had a bunch of people who were very paranoid about that whole situation. And I'm here like, it's not going to be a big deal. We just vote them out if we go. So I think that was more so the struggle, was trying to convince people that it wasn't real. And if it was real, that was a risk we had to take, but I didn't want to tell them that.
Had you disclosed to anyone that you had the legitimate fake idol?
I'm pretty sure I had told Sharif at that point, but I don't think I said much about it at that point to anybody else. Maybe Barbara as well. I think I told Barbara as well. Barbara and Sharif, I told them what I had. And I talked about it more later on.
So the plan had been to, at that point, 4 votes on Storm, 1 vote KC, Storm votes wherever? Would that have been the vote plan?
I think so.
Now, one of the things that you probably learned for the first time is that you are part of the Holy Trinity.
So this is a really great thing. I love what Storm did, because he came in and he was telling us a bunch of truths and a bunch of lies. And because he was saying them together, it all sounded like truths. And so Storm says Bash was saying, you know, we're all the Holy Trinity, whatever. He said a bunch of different stuff, but it didn't stick as much. But I just remember that I was laughing so hard about that. That just became a running joke. When I voted later on, I always put triangles in mine, you know. So,
yeah. What were you hearing about Bash from Storm?
Just that he spilled everything when he got there, and I was like, "There's not much to spill, so I'm not too worried about it." But like, you know, knowing Bash, he might have said a little bit more than what was actually going on. So I don't know what Storm was doing.
So you walk into your next immunity challenge on day 5, and you're looking at the Kawanu 2.0 tribe, and who is there but Bash? What talk about your reaction seeing that Bash is there, but James has been voted out?
Right. I was so shocked. I thought Bash was done for, and I wasn't opposed to that. I wasn't upset about it because, like I had talked about earlier, I felt like he was one of those people that would not have fared well for our long game as like the tribe's long game. So I wasn't like too upset about it, but at the same time, that proved exactly why he should have gone earlier. So it was like kind of bittersweet. I was like, oh, wow, they really took out James. And I thought maybe Bash had the idol. Maybe he did find the idol, you know, his tearing up our camp looking for firewood. But I was just shocked that it was James, because I was like, wow, you know, that was somebody that I really thought that I could, you know, get on my side. And out of anybody there that had to go from yellow, I wish it wasn't James, because I think that he could have helped me out in the end game or in the merge more.
And so you have this blindfold challenge. What was your role in it?
I was the caller, so I was the only one who could actually see.
Mission success.
Mission success. I have been told since that I wasn't the greatest caller as far as getting people to go get pieces. I know I said Barbara's name at least 100 times, maybe 200. And I just could not get people where I wanted them to. I couldn't do multiple people once. I could get one person pretty good spot. But, you know, once they got close enough, I kind of just said, you know, feel on the ground and then go talk to somebody else. And that was like, I wish I could do that a little bit better. But at the end of the at the end of the day, I am somebody who's good at puzzles. I'm good at communicating in a small circle and getting people to do something better. We have to talk about this, John. Yes, Barbara, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this. Because I know you have a lot of different perspective than me. But I knew that once we got all the pieces on the mat, I knew I could get that down pretty quickly, just because I know that I know how to set something up like that a little bit easier than most people would.
So your tribe wins this challenge. I mean, at this point, you know you're going to go down the final 10, which likely merge is happening, like unless they go to the final 9. Tell me how you're feeling about your tribe and where you're standing in the game and what the merge is going to look like for you in the future.
So it was in our minds that Bash maybe found a way in. So if another yellow went home, then it was going to be 5-5, theoretically. You know, obviously switch maybe Bash and KC, and then you have like basically the same original tribes. And I'm just at that point I'm thinking, all right, how do we make this work where 5-5 comes out on top, or 6-6 at that point because of the little vote medallions and everything.
Yeah.
So that was really what was going in my head. I wasn't really concerned about anything else. I'm just like, all right, plan for the worst, hope for the best, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. How are you feeling at this point?
I'm feeling fine. I looked around and I said, I probably wouldn't be the first person to go at merge because I don't think I'm that threatening.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong, but
you mentioned earlier, when I didn't dig into it then, that you were kind of viewing, I think, both Sharif and Megan as shields, right?
Yes.
And I remember really being hopeful. It's like, those opening confessionals, everyone's talking about Sharif in your tribe.
Mm.
I'm just like, wow, maybe Sharif is going to be Josh's shield, right? But at what point did you think that you became Sharif's shield versus vice versa? Or was it just like Sharif being immunity sealed your fate later on?
I think as the tribe started getting into the swap phase, especially that point where Megan actually came back and she got to see how the tribes really were doing, I think that opened up her eyes to like how I was playing the game, mm-hmm. and that I was playing the game from start to that point, and I was still playing.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that nobody else was playing, but I think it was more apparent that my game was good at that point, because I want to say that I played a really good pre-merge. I want to say that I had all my cards lined up exactly how I wanted them. Everything that I wanted to happen happened in the moment. Obviously I go back and change stuff now retrospectively, but in the moment I got what I wanted. And I think that was evident to people outside of my alliance. And I think that's kind of where people were like, okay, he's getting what he wants, even though Sharif might be more likable, might be more physical. He's the one to watch out for, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're good at challenges. It matters if you can win the respect of the jury. And I would like to say that I was well-spoken enough to have that impression that people would think that.
Talk to me a little bit more about your relationship with Megan as she gets back from the Kawanu tribe.
Right. So when she got back from Kawanu, I thought we had it in the bag at that point. Hearing that she was making good relationships and that we could get more information from her, I was thinking, this is great, because I thought she really was like making an effort to come back with us at the start. And I was very excited about that. As time gets on, I realized that she was really playing the middle and weighing her options as we started integrating more with the new tribe once merge came.
So is there anything else you want to talk about the pre-merge, or anything else you might have missed?
No, I think that's good. Yeah, we're good.
All right. So evening day 5, you see the Kawanu tribe return from their second tribal council, and who is there but Bash, and who is not there but Keenan?
Yeah, I was again shocked. Like we had a better idea that it could happen, but we were still shocked.
Mm-hmm. Now, but you do have the most authentic Survivor merge feast you could possibly have with Applebee's.
I love the Applebee's reward, and let me tell you, I hate Applebee's in the I think it's like I've never had a good experience. I've always ended up sick or just like really just unhappy after Applebee's. But let me tell you, Applebee's was my favorite sit-down restaurant at that point. So I was very excited. The burgers are great. The onion rings are great. I was, when you're hungry, stuff is great. And I wasn't feeling good that day, because I don't think we made rice in the morning that day, and I couldn't get it down. And I was really struggling. I think at the mat I was overheating. So there was a lot of like stuff where I was just like really not feeling good that day. So that really just felt really good.
So you're meeting 2 players for the first time, right? You're meeting Lauren and Ryan. You've kind of met Angela before, right? So you have a little bit of advantage, because what's weird about this merge is that there's surprisingly less overlap than you would think, mm-hmm. right? Because there's 3 players who never left Anoga, you, Sharif, and Barbara. 3 players who never left Kawanu, Lauren, Angela, and Ryan. And then you kind of have a couple players in the middle of Sebastian, Casey, Megan, and Storm.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that was an interesting mix up of people. I thought we came out on top with information wise because we had Megan, who seemed to have good relationships, whereas Storm had only been there for that evening the night before, or like that half a day. So he wasn't really able to get that much information from us. Whereas I felt like Megan had like a day and a half to do that.
Uh-huh.
So I thought we had the upper hand in that regards. Now they add Bash, and we realized at that point Bash had defected from us basically.
Yeah.
So, but we had Casey, so it all evened out. So I really thought it was 5-5.
So you have your I guess your first and only individual immunity challenge. This is the balancing challenge, right, with the platforms?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say I never want to win the first individual immunity challenge. I think it looks bad for somebody like me to win a challenge, especially if it's like a more physically set challenge. But I just don't want to win the first challenge in general, just because I don't want people thinking or even having the slightest hint of an idea that I am good at challenges. So I'm not going to say I threw it, but I wasn't necessarily trying my hardest.
Mm-hmm. Do you wish in retrospect do you think you could have won it?
No, I don't think I could have won it. But obviously all things considered, if you think about it a little bit more. So Stan was the person who was handing my clay pigeons. He said that my hand was tilted about a degree more than it should have been. He said if I had just lifted my hand up a little bit more, I would have gone a lot farther. But I'm not thinking about that kind of thing. I'm just thinking about, I don't want to seem like,
you have enough issues as is.
Right.
The physical threat, like, no, thank you.
Yeah. So.
So one of the things I hear other players talk about is that you seemed out of it, or maybe a little sick the evening of day 5. Was that as a result of the Applebee's, or was that kind of a result you mentioned earlier, like struggling with the rice in the morning, kind of feeling like overheated during the day?
I think I was overheated. I had not been drinking enough water, I guess, that night before or that morning. So I was very fatigued, very physically tired. My mind was still going.
Yeah.
My mind was still in the game. But when I got back to camp, I saw the nice shelter. I had a pillow. I laid down. I closed my eyes. I was listening. I could hear people talking, but I just didn't get up. Mm-hmm. And when I was awake, so I'm sure that I was up and around for a little bit before, because I didn't want to immediately go to bed. But I would stand around a lot of yellow. And this is where they'll say that I didn't approach them. Well, they didn't really approach me either. I would try to stand next to somebody and be like, hey, you want to go walk or something like that. And nobody walked with me. So other than people from my tribe. So I want to say that goes both ways, because I should have really put emphasis on, hey, do you want to go talk? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, you're just not feeling great. I had no energy. And at that point, I'm sure my body told me, go get some rest. And that's what I did.
So was the strategy for the final 10 tribal council mostly put in place the night of day 5 or the morning of day 6 for you?
On our side?
Yeah.
So on our side, we were still trying to figure things out, I think that night, I had come up with the giveaway immunity plan. I talked to Sharif. I said, you think Casey would give him immunity away? Mm-hmm. He said, no, there's no way. And I said, but I think he might actually. Because he really wants to prove his trust to us. And so we could be like, this could be your last test. This could be your last thing before you get knighted and become an official Onogu or whatever. So that was my plan. And I was like, all right, how do we play this out? And so slept on it a little bit. In the morning, I talked to them and I say, if it is 5-5, Megan is not going to rocks for us. So we need to figure out a different way to come out on top with only the plurality of the votes. So the only way I could think about doing that was scaring them or trying to mess up their plans at tribal council at the very last possible moment. And what better then having an immunity train, having stuff move around. I knew that risk would be them putting it on somebody that we're not going to move stuff around with. And I think one of the mistakes that I made was I told Megan, I should have left Megan out of it, knowing that she was playing double agent and then she might say something.
Yeah.
If I had not told Megan, I think we might have had a better idea of how to maneuver stuff.
Mm-hmm. So you felt pretty confident that she was not going to vote with you all on the revote.
On a revote, no. I figured that she would flip over and vote for whoever was in a tied situation. So what made sense to me was Sharif had the vote medallion. So let's like make sure that he's protected. But let's also throw out an idol, my fake idol. It looked real. So when I pulled it out of the bag and made sure that they all saw it, the people who might have the idol saw that it looked real. That's what I handed it off to KC and was like, this is for you for being such a great guy. And I was hoping that at that point, they might be scared that, especially if like they had planned voting Sharif into the vote, that they would have to then figure that out then. In hindsight, I should have kept the idol for myself and make them like still showed it and made a show of it, but kept it for myself.
Yeah.
Or had Sharif stand up and give it to me or something, or had KC stand up and give it to me. That way it scares them more and try to sway some votes. Because all we needed was, I guess, 2 people at that point to not vote with me. And then it would be tied. I don't know, something like that.
Now, how aware were you know about all the advantages on your side of the table? How aware were you were the advantages on the other side of the table?
I knew that, or I had a very strong feeling that Ryan had a real idol. I had no idea about Storm's idol. I had no idea about anything else that was in play. But I knew that stuff would come out into play. So we had to choose somebody that we had to choose somebody to vote that wouldn't ruffle any of their feathers and they wouldn't even think about playing idols for. So we ended up voting for Bash because we figured if they have an idol, they are not going to waste their idols on somebody who is not part of the Grand Alliance, I should say, that Grand Yellow Alliance.
So on one hand, the plan doesn't work out because Megan just flips from the get-go. On the other hand, it's extremely successful because you get a reaction to your theatrics.
Yes. So that is another idea, is like, if you create paranoia and you move stuff around, they're going to be paranoid. Even if it doesn't go to the same person that they're trying to vote, they're still going to be thinking like, what do I need to do? So I am so thankful that they burned 2 idols on voting me out. Like, that's such an honor and everything. Like, I helped out some bit in getting some people some relief that there was no idols. And hey, there was no other idols in the game other than what was going to get replaced, because there was no Unoga idol.
I mean, at that point, like at the final 10, did you still think Megan had it, or like?
I just thought she was going to be sitting pretty with an idol, and that's why I was more confident with having her be in a position where she would be willing to tie, because I thought maybe she'd just play an idol if she didn't feel safe. Because if the idol I had was real, I would have 100% played it for Megan in that scenario and told her in advance that I was doing that, because I wanted her to feel safe, because there would be no risk for her to go to rocks at that point.
Yeah.
So, should have given Megan the immunity necklace. Now that would have been interesting. I don't know. That she probably still votes out KC at that point then. Interesting.
So, looking back at the decision points in your game, what could you have done to change the makeup of that 10-person merge to better be in your favor? Specifically, if Dina been in it, would you think things would have gone over better?
I've always known that if Dina was there at merge, I would get farther. There was a conversation that we had before she was eliminated, and she said, I can get you to Final Four, but I can't promise that your allies will either. And that was like, in my head, I was like, okay, I believe Dina. I know that I could make it very far into the game with her on my side and in my pocket, or I'm in her pocket, or whatever it is. But that is a losing game.
Mhm.
If it does get down to 4, there's 3 probably. It's probably Lauren, Dina, and Angela at that point. And if I don't win immunity, I'm gone for sure. I mean, there's no ands, ifs, and buts about it unless Dina lets me make fire, which I think at that point she would probably have been like, "You've had your fun, but I'm going to win the game now." um, yeah, but I mean, like, yeah, I would have probably made 5th or 6th, but in my head, it's like, well, I'd rather have control over my game. I'd rather, lose but have had a better shot, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Because I would have made it farther, but I think there's less win percentage of me going with Dina than there is me not going with Dina.
Yeah, that's fair. It's kind of like, it's like all this, like, would you rather be like a winner, but like on the lowest tier of everyone's brackets? Would you rather be like that the fallen angel of the season that everyone like oohs and ahs about, but you didn't win? It's kind of like one of those questions, like how do you want to play versus what do you want the outcome to be?
Right. And I figured in my own head, I said, if Dina's not here, if I can get past the first vote at merge, I think I'm sitting pretty good. That's not what happened. But
and like, how confident were you that you were the vote at that point?
Oh, I knew they were voting for me because in my head, you're thinking about it. In their mind, you can't vote for KC. KC has immunity. Why would you vote for Sharif? Because they have idols. They can play it safe on Lauren. So it didn't matter what they did necessarily. They could have voted someone else, because if we voted for Lauren, it doesn't make sense, even for them to vote for Sharif. So they didn't need to vote out Sharif. They weren't going to vote for Barbara because I think the women wanted to keep Barbara in their pocket. So who does that leave? I think it leaves me. And the other thing was Bash. If we could get everybody to vote Bash, maybe, but that wasn't happening.
So it sounds like one of the key decision points of your game is kind of the Julia vote out, and like in retrospect, had that been Bash, that would really change the direction of the game, because maybe Unoga lacks on that clear defector.
Mm-hmm. And I think if Julia was still there, I think maybe I would have sent both. That's so hard to say. I think maybe I wouldn't have gone on the new swap tribe with both Sharif and Barbara and tried to work on my relationship with Carly and Julia at that point on a new tribe. I don't know. Yeah. All kinds of different things going on.
Storm asks, if you knew you were the vote, why not have KC give you immunity?
Because that left KC vulnerable, I think. Yeah. I think it made more sense so when we came up with the plan when I came up with the plan to give or to tell KC to give up immunity, or ask him to give up immunity, it made more sense logically for him to give it up to Sharif because he had the vote than it did for him to give it up to me or to Barbara. Because at that point, then it just feels like we're trying to play him. But if there's actual reason behind trying to give up immunity, it makes sense. So having that extra vote, having that uncertainty of if they did vote Sharif, then I think it just made more sense for him. Because I would have definitely told Casey give it to me, but like it just wouldn't have made sense, and I think he would have felt like he was getting duped. And I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to protect as many allies as possible. And I think that's something that people underestimate in me is that I am very, like, especially early merge and pre-merge, I am very much trying to protect my allies and make sure that, everybody gets through. Everybody gets a piece of the pie. Everybody tries to get safe. And I will be as selfless as possible. I will go to rocks 10 times out of 10 for my allies.
So let's say one way or another, the vote works the way you want it to, and we see Sebastian go out, right? Talk me through your ideal perfect trajectory of the merge.
Okay. So ideally, I would say go after the two guys.
Yeah, so let's assume Storm and Lauren still win immunity, like at Final 9. All right,
Right.
So do you go for Ryan next?
I think we go for Ryan next because he had just given up an immunity, and I think he would be a big person that would not be willing to flip on the game. And the other side of it is we know that the women are trying to work together. We know women, Megan is very, like, even from the beginning, she was very, I want a woman to win this game. So we maybe had to have looked out for that a little bit. There's a lot of different scenarios. I think my personal opinion was go after Ryan and then go after some of the girls and then kind of go back and forth if we had that option.
Would you have looked at taking your 5, let's say the 5 Unoga and KC? Would you have thought, like, get rid of the Kawano, leave that's the final 6 and duke it out from there? Or
yeah, I think at that point it would make more sense for me because the less old Kawano, the less options other people have. So I would have been very pro Final 5. I talked to Sharif about this a little bit. Sharif and I kind of had this understanding. We were very good allies in the game, but we kind of had this little understanding of, I'm not taking you to Final Tribal Council. You're not taking me to Final Tribal Council. I think we both knew that. It was kind of unspoken rule between us. So I think what would have happened, I think if that whole scenario plays out, I think we get to Final 5, and I think me and Sharif go out back to back unless one of us goes on an immunity streak. And then the final 3 is Megan, Barbara, and Casey. Okay.
And so what would have been your ideal final 3?
Anybody that I could get to the final 3 with. I think I was confident that I could spin a tale that was believable enough against anybody. I think maybe Sharif was the one person that I was like, maybe I don't want to go up against, because I think he was just generally more liked than I was. And we had similar games to that point. So I think that would have been the hardest hurdle to jump. But really, in my world, it's just getting to the end, and I'll worry about winning after that.
So talk to me about your experience now as a juror and Ponderosa, and a little also like what you're looking for in a winner.
So the jury, a lot of people had a rough time in the jury. The jury was not necessarily fun, but it wasn't that bad. When I got there, it was just me, James, and Keenan. And I was having a great time. I was having a great time talking to them. I had brought a bunch of miniature Survivor puzzles, like a bunch of 3D printed stuff, laser cut stuff. So we're like having puzzle parties and everything. Casey comes in. We're having like tournaments. I'm like, who's going to be the best of the puzzle? You know, I was playing Jeff Frost for a little bit. It's like, Survivor's ready, go. And then like, you know, they were all competing in puzzles. And then I stepped in at some point. It was having fun. As more people came in, it was getting more crowded. It was getting tougher for a lot of people, but I had no problem with it. This is the kind of life that I live. I do, I'm a RA. I'm in college, so I'm used to being around a bunch of people. I'm used to being stuck in rooms. I've been in boarding schools since I was like 15, 16 years old, so I'm used to this kind of life. I'm used to a bunch of people in a small room. So my jury experience was actually pretty good. You know, finally getting my phone call, you know, shower, going out. I'll tell you what the best part was. Other than my phone call, the phone call was amazing, but I got to go to a gas station with Amos. And just walking in and having so much stimulation from the color, from the light, from even the smells of like, you know, cheap gas station hot dogs and everything. Like, it was just amazing, like having that rush of like, oh my gosh, like I wanted to go around and buy like all the candy bars and everything, because I was just like, oh my gosh, I haven't had this in a week. And then I got my Kleinbeck bars and I was very happy. And as far as a winner, I am not picky. I am somebody who likes to just listen to what other people have to say while they're coming in and make an educated decision based off of how I felt people were playing and how other people felt were playing, and try to make the best of both worlds while also giving the finalists a chance to give themselves a shot to get my vote.
So, once you leave the game at the final 10, who would you have liked to have seen made the final 3?
I mean, of course, I'm rooting for Sharif at that point. I think that every day he didn't go home, I was just like, what are they doing? That is just a terrible decision. You guys are the biggest morons in letting him get by. Because I really thought, I was like, if he gets to the end, there's no way. I really wanted Megan to get to the end, too. I really thought that she really deserved it. She played a great game. But I kind of figured, I was like, she's going to get cut near the end just because she doesn't have the connections from the old tribe, per se.
Yeah.
To get her in that finale seat. So I was really rooting for her. I was really hoping that she would, but I didn't think it was very likely. Those were the 2 people that I was like very much like, I hope they make it.
So talk me through the decision to vote for Angela versus Storm versus Sebastian.
So going into Tribal Council, a lot of people were just saying Storm or Angela. We weren't really giving Bash a fair chance. But I knew there was a way that I would vote for Bash, because the way I see Bash is that character that I watch on Survivor and say, oh my gosh, I love this guy. I would love to vote for him. I want to see him win just because it would be the funniest shit ever. Like it would be like a Gabon level Survivor winner. And I would just be so happy with that. But in the game, I couldn't bring myself to do something like that because I thought that Angela had played a better game once it came down to it. We had heard bits and pieces of it. We wanted to hear how Storm choreographed his game. Okay. And I think he just didn't have the influence that Angela had. I think Angela had all her cards lined up exactly how she needed to them. And she just played the perfect game that she could have played. I think Storm could have played a better game that he was capable of. Or I think he was capable of playing a better game than he did. And I think Bash was capable of playing a better game than he did. I thought Angela played the game she had to play.
Well, is there anything about your jury that we maybe didn't talk about?
The amount of chips and salsa James and A ate throughout the game was astronomical. I didn't think we could eat that much chips and salsa. And yeah, I don't think there was anything else I really needed to talk about. I had a great time on the jury. As time got on, it was kind of like, all right, we have to go through this again. I have to go through all the scenarios again and be like, oh yeah, I wish I had done. But
well, I'd like to kind of throw some rapid fire questions at you now as we wrap things up. So the first question is, who surprised you the most out there?
Who surprised me the most? After the game Bash, I was like completely blown away by just who he is, his mindset and everything going into it. While I was out there, I have to say that Angela really surprised me. I saw her, didn't think much of it at the very beginning, but when I got to see her in action, impressive, so impressive.
So who do you wish you had a chance to work with but didn't?
I want to say Julia, just because I know that I did get to work with her a little bit, but I wish I had furthered upon that. Mm-hmm. As far as the other tribe, I think Megs and I took her to the airport after the game, and we got along really great. I think we would have been great allies too. So,
what was your lowest point in the game?
Definitely right before the merge feast. I was very just again tired, fatigued. I wasn't drinking the water. I was just gassed. And then probably that night when I was also still very not feeling great, and kind of realized oh, I haven't been talking to everybody. That feeling.
Do you feel like had you not been feeling that way and you feel like a Survivor normal, I suppose, would that have made a difference?
I think it would have made somewhat of a difference, but I think people would have still gone after me.
What was your highest point in the game?
I want to say that next morning, honestly. When I woke up, on the day that I was going home, I was so happy. I was so energized. I was so ready to take on the day, take on challenges if I was granted to take another challenge. And there's a great picture that I'll have to find that I think Pete took of me right before I went down to tribal council. I kind of knew in the back of my head I'm probably going if something goes wrong, but I just had the biggest smile on my face, and it was like, that's what embodies me. I don't care if things go wrong. I'm having a great time out there. I think that's the best part.
Had you found the Noga idol, would you have told anyone?
Absolutely. I think the power behind an idol is how you use it socially, not how you use it strategically. Because you gain a lot more trust from people sharing them information and sharing them stuff that you shouldn't talk about on Survivor. I don't think I would have shared it with many people, but I would have cemented relationships and maybe tried to use it to gain more trust from other people.
What was your favorite challenge?
Favorite challenge was I really like the one with the PVC pipe and then the table maze. I think that's just classic Survivor. Oh no, I like the blind leading the blind. That's just the best challenge ever. I think it's so fun. I watch that at least once a week now, just to see me scream at Barbara. And like at one point, Sharif, the thing was on the ground right here, and I was like, Sharif, it's right in front of you. He's like putting his hand literally everywhere around it. It made me laugh so hard. I was like, pick up the goddamn piece of wood, Sharif. But I'll watch that every now and then. It's just so fun to watch. So that is my favorite challenge.
Any favorite moments from camp life that didn't make it onto the live stream?
Well, obviously my beloved cuddle with Sharif and Star Wars talk and everything. I think that was a pretty highlight. I think just in general, being out there, because we don't get the same camera treatment that we would on Real Survivor. Yeah. They're out there for a few hours a day, just getting the shots that they need. But for the most part, it's like strategy talk, confessionals. So I wish that we got to see more of our just general camp life, just us having a good time.
Dina wants to know, did anything go missing while playing for you?
Anything go missing while playing for? I lost my shirt. I don't know what happened to that, but I've heard Bash took my shirt or something like that. I don't know why. I was like I was looking for that too. I was like, where is it? And like I never got it back. So I guess he just is chilling out with my shirt, and it didn't fit me anyway. So it's like whatever.
Yeah, but no, Bash has a trophy from the game.
Yeah, I was like, it just makes me laugh when I heard that. I was like. And it was fun getting to talk to him afterwards, because he would tell me that I was his like little adversary. I was the one that he was like trying to pit up against him and everything. And I was like, that's so like, just, I love you, Bash. I love Bash. I love him so much. And I'm so glad that I was his little rival for the season.
Do you have any takeaways for yourself of things you learned about yourself as a result of playing Reelfoot?
I was very proud of what I did. I obviously, retrospectively, you could do better. You could figure out better ways to go about it. But at the end of the day, I was very proud of the game that I played, just because I had seen, my good friends are Michael, Stan, Pete, Chapman. And so to be a part of the community that I have so longed to be a part of, and finally to get that opportunity to be around these people, I think I was just like, this is home. This is something that I can rely on for years to come. And it's wonderful.
Would you play another one of these games again?
Yes. I don't know how soon, but yes, I would definitely would. Just depends on timing and everything.
And last but not least, is your, as a resident assistant, is your floor going to be Survivor themed next year?
I think it's cheesy, but yeah, absolutely, I would do that. I'm going to go as far out, and maybe just to bother Drew a little bit, I'll do a Star Wars thing too. So
we'll your students will be very lucky to have you as their RA.
I hope so. Thank you.
Well, Josh, I think that's all from me. Any last words?
I'm looking forward to listening to everybody else's. I hope that you're feeling better and you get to a point where you can withstand a few more hours of people rambling about their games. But yeah, thank you for doing this. I know that everybody appreciates this, especially the people who get to spill out their story and finally have something to feel like they're speaking to other people about. So thank you for putting this on for everybody.
Yeah, no, thank you for taking the time. I loved hearing your thoughts about the season. You were, I think, a main force behind the Unoga tribe this season. Unfortunately, it was not the Unoga tribe's time to shine. This was a Kiwanu season, but still,
I don't think it was ever Inoga's time to shine.
I really enjoyed hearing your thought process and working through all the different stages of the game.
I want to say thank you to Frank. At the end of the game, we had a little auction for items, and Frank ended up winning this. And at the end of the game, he ended up walking up to me and giving to me, and it was just a very, very heartfelt thing.
I thought you just would have made it yourself, because I'm just like, that seems like something Josh could do.
Yeah, I probably would have if I didn't get that, but now I have it, so I don't have to make it. Yeah. And where did I get those cool pants from? I got it from Harem Pants. I'm sure that if you reach out to Frank Goodfaster, he'll give you a nice link to those and a good discount code. It's definitely where I got those pants. I don't know if I said that right, but yes.
Before we go, do you want to put up a shout out for your Etsy shop?
Yeah, so my Etsy shop, I'm not currently up right now just because I have a lot going on. But after I get situated in school and everything, I sell on Outcast Originals on Etsy. My email is outcastoriginals on Etsy @gmail.com. I have an Instagram, outcast.originals. And if you look up Outcast Originals on Etsy, look for the Skull and Crossbones. You'll find it. It's very easy to find. Survivor Idols, Survivor Advantages, Parchments. I'm working on some challenge stuff. And I'm sure there'll be opportunities for custom pieces in the future. Like Steven said, I've done stuff for different LRGs across the board. I do a lot of voting parchments. That's probably one of my most popular items. All kinds of different Survivor stuff. Just reach out to me at some point. Just want to see some stuff. Go to my Instagram account. That's where you'll be able to see a lot of my work.
Well, Josh, again, thank you so much for the past 2 hours of your time. I'm really grateful to hear your side of the story. You're one of the first. I haven't had a chance to speak to many of the Unoga players yet, so really kind of hearing your side of the story is giving me great detail into what I can then ask everyone else as well. So this has been awesome for me. For those of you tuning in, thank you so much for your time. I will be hopefully back tomorrow night with either Barbara or Sharif. I can't remember which is which at this point. One of the two tomorrow evening. So they swapped. So I think it's I don't know. I'll know be on with one of them tomorrow. I'll have to check my messages with them, remember who is who. But I'll be back tomorrow for that, give or take my illness, and hopefully, Josh, you and I both recover fast.
Yes, hopefully. Good luck to you on that.
All right, take care, everyone.